Hi, everybody. I've had some questions about the scales that are listed in Schoology and pushed out to the whole school, and wanted to go through those quickly so you had an idea of what they were. A scale is basically how the grade is reported. So traditionally, we report numbers, points, percentages, but scales allow you to report a student's progress or proficiency in a course in other ways as well, whether for a whole course or whether for individual assignments. So by default, courses are on numeric, which is just reporting the 0 to 100 percentage. But you can also see the second scale here is A plus minus. So this is adding that letter grade component in, again, following the traditional percentages related to those letter grades. The next scale is the completion scale. And so this is a scale that you can use for an assignment when you're just checking off that students have completed it or not. So from the student side, it will just say either complete, partly complete, or insufficient. Those are just descriptors I came up with. If there's something else you want, it is possible to change this or even to make your own scales. But I use this sometimes, just something I'm checking off. On the student side, complete would be equivalent to a 100%. You can see over on the right-hand side there, letter conversion is 100 for complete, but they don't even see that. They just see the word complete, and when they're looking at the grade book, then they can see which things they finished, and then if there's stuff that they haven't finished yet. So I like that for assignments that I'm not really grading. I just want to check off. There's also a pass-fail scale. This would be more for the course. So it's just set up in the traditional 0 to 60 and then 60 to 100. If you have something like pass class, you can use the pass-fail scale for that, or advisory. And you would do that right over here in the center where it says final grade settings. You can choose which scale you want to use for the final grade settings. I use the proficiency scale in my biology class, so that's why it's there. You can also choose over here on the right-hand side with the little star which scale you want by default. So for biology, I usually use the proficiency scale, so I'm going to star that, which makes it my default scale when I create an assignment. The proficiency scale was developed by a group this summer, and the idea was to bring some consistency to teachers who were trying to report student progress using alternatives to the traditional A through F. So the issue we had last year was that different teachers used different descriptors with different equivalencies in terms of letter grades, and that could cause confusion in the long run. So there was a group that got together and decided on this scale to try and use for those that are doing that this year. It has 4 levels: advanced, proficient, approaching, and insufficient. And the way this works is that you can either enter in a percentage or points, and it assigns the letter grade or descriptor based on that number of points. There's a range. So for example, 85 to 100 is advanced, 70 to 85 is proficient. But you can also just select the descriptor, and then there's a default value, and that's where it says letter conversion over on the right side. So for advanced, the default value is 100. Proficient, 80, approaching 65, and insufficient is 50. So from the grade book, you can either enter in the number or you can just click on the descriptor you want, and it automatically calculates based on those percentages. But the students don't see any of those numbers. They don't see the percentage. They just see advanced, proficient, approaching, or insufficient. So it's a way to encourage them to hopefully make progress in areas where they're not proficient, or if they're trying to push themselves toward that advanced level. The last 2 scales say WRHS rubric, and one's 10 points and one's 100 points. What these are actually a different type of scale. These are called points-based scales, and the way that they work is they're set up so that you can populate a rubric, in this case based on the proficiency scale. So here's the 10-point scale. You can see it says advanced, proficient, approaching, insufficient, the exact same as the proficiency scale. And then the points are equivalent to those default values, right? 10 out of 10 is 100%, 8 out of 10 would be 80%, 65%, and 50%. So if you're doing a rubric, and you want the lines on the rubric to be worth 10 points, and you want to use this same scheme for assessing the same words or terms, this is a way to do that. I'll show you in just a second. There's also a 100-point version of that, again, with the exact same descriptors and with the same equivalent point values. So if I was making a rubric up here, come in, give that rubric a title, and then I can apply grading scale. And if I choose like the rubric 10-point scale, I'm going to confirm that, right? It'll automatically populate the rubric now with those 4 levels, with those 4 descriptors, and the equivalent point values that are on the proficiency scale. And then I can go from there, adding my other information onto the rubric. So that's how you would use it. And let me know if you have any questions.